Dear class 11 students, welcome back to the online tutorials again. Today we will learn the 10th chapter from from the pro section, from the literature, that is. The name of the chapter, as you can see on the screen, is The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. You can see his picture here, looking rather young. Uh, we will see something about the author before we get into the chapter. Now, the author, Oscar, his full name, Oscar Fingal O'Flaherty Wills Wilde, born 16 October 1854 and passed away on 30th November the 1900s. He was an Irishman, an Irish poet, an author, and a playwright. He wrote plays, which we are going to see one today, fiction, essays, and poetry. After writing in different forms throughout the 1880s, Oscar Wilde became very popular in the 1980s. I'm sorry, in 1890s. In 1890s, so he become one of the most popular playwright in London. He shifted to London. Uh, Before we move on, as I have mentioned earlier, my dear class 11 students, the voice is not of studio quality. My voice, you might not get a studio quality voice. You will have to uh, excuse us for that. It is because we don't have a proper recording gadgets here. Okay, but if you can manage with this voice, I'll be very grateful. Okay, now getting back into the chapter. Uh, he is best remembered for his epigrams and plays. Epigram. Epigram here I've given here for your for your knowledge. An epigram is a brief, interesting, memorable, and sometimes surprising statement. Okay, that is what epigram writing is all about. His noted works include, some of his prominent works include The Picture of Dorian Gray and The Importance of Being Earnest. This is one of his noted works, and this is what we are going to learn today, the importance of being earnest. We will, of course, not be getting into the complete play. Okay? As given in your textbook, some portions are left out. Nevertheless, we will learn the play. Now, before we learn the play, the importance of being earnest, we will see the characters, okay, the actors or the characters of the play. I hope the screen is clear enough. All right, let me adjust the screen, my dear people. Here, the characters, the first character as well as the leading character, we call it the protagonist. It's like the hero of a film. Okay, the first character is John Worthing, initial JP. He's in the play. He will be known as Jack as well as Ernest. Why, we will come to know later on. Okay, he is the play's protagonist, the leading character. He's a responsible and a very respectable young man. He leads a double life. Leads a double life. You will know what double life is later on in the chapter. He leads a double life he lives in Hertfordshire, where he has a country estate. He has a large estate, okay, and goes by the name Jack, known as Jack, in the countryside, in his estate. Okay, he is known as Jack, but in the city, in the towns in London, he is known as Ernest. That is what we mean by a double life. Okay, why he does it, it will be revealed later on in the chapter. He was in fact an orphan. He was in fact, as a baby, he was discovered in a handbag. Okay, he was an abandoned baby discovered in the handbag in the cloakroom of Victoria train station in London. By an old man, he was discovered by an old man. So this old man adopted him and subsequently made Jack the guardian of the old man's granddaughter, his granddaughter. Okay, the old man, Mrs. Cardew, Mr. Cardew, he in the play, uh, his name is Mr. Cardew, has made him the guardian of his granddaughter, whose name is Cicely Cardew. Uh, Cicely Cardew, later on you will come to know in the chapter also. Now, Jack is in love with his friend. He has a best friend named Algernon who lives in London. Okay, he is in love with Algernon's cousin, first cousin, named Gwendolyn Fairfax. Okay, Gwendolyn Fairfax. These names will be again later on. It will come up in the play. Now that is the first character. The second character is Jack's best friend, Algernon Moncrief, the play's secondary hero. Okay, he is charming, he is idle, he is decorative. He is a decorative bachelor. Decorative bachelor. He leads a very pleasurable and an enjoyable life in London. He's the nephew of Lady Bracknell. Okay, and Algernon is the cousin of Gwendolyn Fairfax. Okay, best friend, their best friend with Jack Worthing, or John Worthing, the protagonist of the novel, of the play, whom he has known for years as Ernest. In London, since Algernon lives in London, he knows Jack as Ernest. Now, Algernon is brilliant, he is witty, he is selfish, and neither moral or immoral. Okay, he lives lives according to his terms. He has invented a fictional friend. Invented a fictional friend means he has made up a friend who is non-existent, okay, and called him Bunberry, who was an invalid, who is sick most of the time. Okay, he falls sick. He has a frequent sudden relapses of illness. He falls ill almost all the time. Now, this fictional friend, non-existent friend, allows him to escape whenever he is tired of social responsibilities or family responsibilities or unpleasant or dull social obligations. He will make an excuse to visit this sick friend who is non-existent. Okay, he has made this as an alibi. Now, he has named this non-existent friend as Bunberry. Now, making up or inventing a friend, inventing a character who is non-existent is called Bunberrying. Okay, and the one who does it is called Bunberryist. Bunberryist. Okay, now this is important because this is central to the novel. So whenever Algernon is tired of social responsibilities or tired of family obligations or family duty, he will just make an excuse, go to the countryside, enjoy, but with an excuse that he's going to meet his sick friend named Bunberry, who is non-existent. Okay, now coming to the third character, we are looking at the characters in a very brief manner. Okay, dear students. Now, Gwendolyn Fairfax is Algernon's, as mentioned earlier, Algernon's cousin and Lady Bracknell's daughter. Gwendolyn is also in love with Jack, whom she knew or she knows as Ernest. Since Gwendolyn also lives in London, and Jack, coming from the countryside to London, and once he reaches London, he is known as Ernest. So she knows him as Ernest only. Gwendolyn is a young, very beautiful model. She is a model, an arbiter of a high fashion, a judge, one who passes judgment or comments of high fashion and society. Okay, that is called an arbiter. She is also sophisticated, intellectual, very much cosmopolitan, and utterly pretentious. Okay, now this is her character. Coming to Lady Bracknell. Lady Bracknell was Algernon's snobbish mercenary. Mercenary means people motivated by gain, private gains. Okay, gain. So here it is The meaning is people who are, like I said, motivated by genes, and domineering auntie. And she is Gwendolyn's mother or mummy. Lady Bracknell married well. She has married well into a rich family. Okay, so she wants the same for her daughter also. In fact, she was holding interviews for a suitable partner for her daughter. Now, Lady Bracknell is given to making hilarious pronouncement. Okay, the humor in Lady Bracknell's speeches are always or generally unintentional. Okay, uh, through the figure of Lady Bracknell, Oscar Wilde manages to satirize the hypocrisy and stupidity of the British aristocracy. Okay? Aristocracy is people who belong to the upper class of the society of the kings and nobles. Okay, they're called aristocrats. Now, Lady Bracknell values ignorance. Now, this is something very wonderful. Why? Because he sees it as a delicate exotic fruit. Ignorance. She values ignorance because for her, it seems ignorance is like a delicate exotic fruit. Okay, she is at the same time cunning, very cunning. She's narrow-minded, authoritarian. Okay? She wants to direct everything, and her character stands out in the play. Okay, now coming to the last character, we have a person named Len. Lane is actually a butler, a chief male servant of the household. He is Algernon's man servant. Okay, the butler, as I mentioned earlier. He is dutiful as well as witty. Lane will say anything. Lane will say and do anything that his master says. He will play along. Okay, does everything to please his master. So when the play opens, in fact, when the play starts, Lane was the only person who knows about Algernon's practice of Bunberry. Nobody knew, nor his family members, nor his auntie, who might be very cunning, but they have no idea about Algernon's character or practice of escaping from social obligations and family duty. Okay? uh, with an excuse to see Bunberry, who is always sick. Now, Lane was the only one who knew Algernon's practice of Bunberry. Okay, so that is it about the characters. Now the chapter. We will see the chapter. This chapter, the importance of being Ernest, was first performed on 14 February 1895 at St. James Theatre, very famous theatre in London. Okay, the play is a farcical comedy. It's a comedy. The protagonist maintains fictitious persona. Okay, a very fictitious persona. He has earlier, remember, he has two persona, one in the countryside and one in the London. Why he does it? Because he does it to escape burdensome social obligations, to enjoy life in London with his friend, to party, to pleasure. Okay, so he will escape from the countryside, okay, with an excuse to see a friend or to see somebody who he knew in London. Now the play opens. This play, as it starts, it opens in the morning room of Algernon Moncrief's flat. Okay, uh, Algernon stays in Mayfair section in London's West End district. Okay, so the play opened in his morning room. Algernon's butler, Lane, is laying out the afternoon tea. Okay? Algernon plays the piano badly. As Algernon is making arrangements for afternoon tea, Algernon is busy playing piano, though badly. Now, Algernon, noticing Lane, he talks about his playing piano. Algernon asks Lane that, you heard what I was playing? But Lane says ironically, no sir, I did not listen. Okay, because Lane thinks it is not polite to listen. Now Algernon briefly defends his bad playing of piano, saying that, I don't play accurately. but anybody can play accurately. I don't play the piano accurately, but I play with sentiment. Sentiment is my strength. Then he inquires Len's preparation of the tea. Now Len is making arrangement for tea because Algernon's auntie, Lady Bracknell, along with his cousin, okay, Gwendolyn Fairfax, is coming for the evening tea to Algernon's place. Now, Algernon asked particularly about cucumber sandwiches, which he has ordered for Lady Bracknell. Okay, his aunt coming for the evening tea along with her daughter Gwendolyn Fairfax, that is Algernon's cousin. Lane produces the cucumber sandwiches. Lane has already prepared the cucumber sandwiches, so he produces the cucumber sandwiches, which instantly Algernon begins to munch absent-mindedly. Yes, sir, I have prepared the sandwiches that you have ordered for your auntie. Here it is. And absent-mindedly, Algernon begins eating it, casually remarking. Now, as he was, casually eating it, he remarks an accurate entry in the household expenditure books. That's why he asks, why is it that the champagne in bachelor's home always gets drunk by the servants? Why is it that the servants always get to drink in the bachelor's household? Len replies that it is because of the better quality in the bachelor's home. Now, there follows some philosophical chat about the nature of marriage and the married state in London, in the society. Okay. Now, Algernon dismisses Len, okay, from the room and speaks to himself about the moral duty of servants of the servant class, how the servants should be behaving. Now, Len goes out of the room. After some time, he re-enters and announces the arrival of Mrs. Ernest Worthing. Okay, that is Algernon's auntie, Lady Augusta Bracknell. Okay, now Algernon greets. I'm sorry, not auntie. Mr. Ernest Worthing, his friend. He announces the arrival of Mr. Ernest Worthing. Jack has come from London, from the countryside. The play's protagonist, who shortly will come to be known as Jack. Okay. Now Algernon greets Jack, asks whether his visit today was business or pleasure. Um, you know, Jack, as usual, says, "Of course, it is pleasure." Notices the elaborate Jack, once seated, notices the elaborate tea arrangement, and asks whom Algernon expects. Algernon, why are you having all this arrangement for tea? Whom are you expecting? Yeah? Because usually they party together all the time. Now, when Algernon tells him that Lady Bracknell and Gwendolyn will be coming, Jack is at once delighted, and because Jack is in love with Gwendolyn, and today he is now very delighted knowing that Lady Bracknell and Gwendolyn is coming for evening tea. So he confesses that he's in fact in town to propose Gwendolyn. He is in town today for the purpose of proposing to Gwendolyn. A brief debate follows as to whether this purpose constitute business or pleasure, and in the course of it, Jack reaches to eat the cucumber sandwiches. Algernon refuses and reprimands him, saying that no, Jack, please don't eat this. It is specially ordered for his aunt. Okay, so, and he tells his friend Jack that if you want to have something, you can have the bread and butter. And incidentally, this bread and butter is ordered for Gwendolyn. Now, when this is mentioned, okay, Jack becomes very delighted and begins eating the bread and butter a bit too enthusiastically, okay, since he is in love with Gwendolyn. That's why seeing this action of Jack, Algernon accuses Jack of behaving as though he were already married to Gwendolyn, right, and reminds Jack that he is not yet engaged to her. And Algernon expresses his doubt whether he will ever be engaged. Now, this surprises Jack. Jack asks what Algernon means. Algernon reminds Jack that Gwendolyn is his first cousin, and tells, before I give you my consent, before I say yes, Okay, you will have to clear up the whole question of Sicily. I have put this in inverted comma because this is direct quote from the textbook. Okay, there seems to be a person called Sicily. All right, Algernon thinks there is another girl in Jack's life, so he says you will have to clear up the question, the whole question about a girl named Sicily. Who is this Sicily? What is your relationship with Sicily? All right. Jack expresses bewilderment. Right. He says he don't know anyone by that name, Sicily. At this Algernon, asked Lan. Okay, he called Lance and said, "Get that cigarette case, which Mr. Worthing left Jack. Okay, which Worthing left in the smoking room the last time he dined here. He ate here. There's a cigarette case that Mr. Worthing has left. Please bring it, because something about Sicily. It has to do that cigarette case as a present has something to do with Sicily. They're going to find out now." When the cigarette case was brought, it amazes Jack, and this amazement was to Algernon's delight. The case, the cigarette case, bears the inscription, "From Little Sicily to her dear Uncle Jack." Now, Algernon forces Jack to explain the inscription. What is this all about? Jack, unable to escape, this. Jack admits his name is not Ernest at all. It is Jack. Algernon hardly believing, insisting that Jack has always introduced himself as Ernest, that he answers to the name Ernest, and even look as though his name were Ernest. Because all these years as best friend, Algernon has known him as Jack and not Ernest. He even shows Jack's visiting card that had the name and address that says, and he says that he intends to keep the card as proof. Jack's name is Ernest. Should Jack deny it? Now, with some embarrassment, Jack finally explained his name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country. Now, this is what Jack earlier in the character study we said that Jack John Worthing lives a double life. This is what it means. Okay, he comes whenever he is in London, whenever he is in town, he goes by the name Ernest. Okay, and acts differently. Whenever he goes back to the country, he is Jack, and there he assumes a different character and he acts differently there. Why, we will know. Now, Algernon is still unsatisfied. He tells Jack that I have always suspected you of being a confirmed and a secret Bunberryist. See, Bunberry is somebody who Bunberry. Bunberry is when a person invents a fictional character just to escape duty or responsibility. Okay, such a person is called a Bunberryist, and inventing a character or a person, non-existent person, is called Bunberry. I have always suspected you of being a Bunberryist, and this Jack was completely confused. He could not understand the term Bunberryist, a term that he refuses to define until Jack explained why two completely different names. Why do you have two different names? Why do you call yourself Ernest in town and Jack in the country? Okay, now Jack explains. Let me just the screen 1 sec. Now Jack explains. See, it is like this. The old gentleman, Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me in his will and made him guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew, okay, who happens to live on Jack's country estate, big land in the countryside, with her governess, Miss Prism. Okay, Jack explains. Since I am adopted by Mr. Cardew, and Mr. Cardew in his will has made me the guardian of his granddaughter, Miss Cecily, right? I have to always have a high moral view, and I have to maintain a very high stature since I am made a guardian to somebody. Miss Cecily now addresses Jack as her uncle out of respect. Okay, calls Jack uncle out of respect. Jack says that anyone placed in a position of legal guardian must have high moral values as well as moral views about everything. You cannot play full when you are made the legal guardian of somebody. Okay, you must have a respected. Uh, you must maintain a very respected status. You must have a high moral value. You must have high moral views about everything, and maintaining this utmost morality. Jack explains that maintaining this utmost morality, high morality, it doesn't bring any great happiness, right? It doesn't bring pleasure or happiness. So he pretended to have a troublesome younger brother. He told the family they back there in the country that he has a younger brother named Ernest who lives at Albany Hotel and who frequently gets in trouble. Now that is what he has said there in the household, that oh, I have another brother, okay, whose name is Ernest. He lives in Albany Hotel in London and he frequently gets into trouble. That's why my attention, my presence there is always required. Now this false brother gives Jack an excuse to go to town whenever he wants to enjoy, right? That's why he has two characters and two names. That is what he has explained. Now Algernon on his part also tells Jack that I have a secret of my own, his own. Just as Jack has invented a younger brother so he can go to London and enjoy, Algernon has also invented a friend called Bunberry. Right? Jack's Bunberry is called Ernest. Algernon's Bunberry is called Bunberry itself. Okay, Bunberry, who was a permanent invalid. Okay, who was a permanent invalid whose sudden and frequent illness gives a chance to get away to the countryside whenever he wants. Right? Algernon's Bunberry, okay, is differently abled, and he always frequently falls sick, and this gives him the chance to go to the country. And then what will he do? Algernon in his household, to his auntie as well as to his friends in London, he will say that, oh, I have a sick friend in the countryside that needs my attention, that needs my presence here, so I'll have to go there. He always make this excuse to go to the countryside and enjoy or relax whenever he is tired of social obligations. So uh, he goes to the countryside whenever he wants. Now Bunbury's illness, for instance, for example, okay, will allow Algernon today, when auntie is coming over for tea, okay, will then Gwendolyn's mummy, Lady Bracknell, okay, is in fact always insisting Algernon to be present at her house for dinner, right? So today, for instance, the Bunbury gives an excuse to have dinner with Jack, okay, despite the fact that he has made a promise to his auntie to have for a week, to dine with them for a week, right? And for Algernon, dining with one's family member is hardly pleasurable. He's a bachelor, right? So dining with family members is not fun for him. In fact, for a bachelor and for uh, somebody like Algernon who loves partying, who loves going out, right? He instead wants to dine out with his friends, have party outside. So this Bunbury will give him a chance, for example, like today, okay, to dine with Jack. Algernon's now he wants to explain the rules of Bunbury to Jack, but Jack denies being a Bunbury's. No, no, no. You might call me a Bunbury's, but I'm not a Bunbury's. In fact, Jack says that in fact, Jack mentions that I'm not the Bunbury, so don't explain me the rules about Bunbury. I don't want to know. I'm not the Bunburys. And he mentions that if today Gwendolyn accepts his marriage proposal, he plans to kill his imaginary brother, which means he plans to stop using the name Ernest. Okay, and he will go back and say that Ernest is no more. That he is thinking of doing so in any case, right? Whether Gwendolyn accepts or not, in any case, I'll be killing my imaginary brother because Cecily now starts taking too much interest in Ernest. Cecily has started asking questions very often about Ernest, who this Ernest is, right? And Jack suggests Algernon to do the same with Bunberry. You better kill off that imaginary friend or brother that you have. I'm doing myself. Now, while the two men argue about the uses and the merits of a married man's knowing Bunbury, right? Lady Bracknell and Gwendolen arrival is announced by Lane. Okay, now what happens? Lady Bracknell, Gwendolen, they enters, they greet, and Lady Bracknell apologizes for the late arrival because they have to visit a friend whose husband died recently. So they, Lady Bracknell apologized for the late arrival. Now sitting down, the auntie, Lady Bracknell, she asked for the cucumber sandwiches which Algernon has promised her. However, there are no more cucumber sandwiches. Remember, as Algernon has absent-mindedly, without realizing, has eaten all up in conversation with Jack, right? He gazes, look at the empty plate in horror, and asks Lane sharply, why there are no cucumber sandwiches. In fact, he is the one who has eaten it all up. You know, Lane, on his part, quickly sensing the situation. Lane, he might be a servant, but this guy is very witty. Quickly sensing the situation, explained that, so sorry, master, but there was no cucumbers at the market this morning or that morning, right? Algernon dismisses Lane, and Lady Bracknell was in fact least concerned about the cucumber sandwiches, and he talks about, you know, nice married woman she's planning to have Algernon sit next to dinner that evening, right? He talks to Algernon. She talks to Algernon, saying, "Algernon, don't worry about the cucumber sandwiches. In fact, you'll be surprised. You'll be very happy to know that I'm going to make you sit next to a very nice married woman, right?" Algernon already knew who this woman was, right? And he is least interested in family dinner because he wants to go out with his friend Jack and other friends in a pub and clubs and wants to enjoy and party. That is what he wants. That's why he Algernon regretfully tells Lady Bracknell that I would love to come for dinner today, but I'm very sorry. You know, uh, due to the illness of his friend Bunberry, an imaginary friend, okay, he will be unable to come to dinner. Now, Lady Bracknell is not happy with this. Lady Bracknell expresses her irritation about Bunbury's ill health. Why? Because he is often sick, and that takes Algernon away from her. All right, Algernon is somebody in the family who has so many responsibilities. So uh, she expresses displeasure regarding Bunbury and says that, see, tell your friend I'm not happy that he not taking care of one's health. He tells that, he tells Algernon that, one's health is one's primary concern. She mentions to Algernon that your friend Bunbury, tell him that he better decide over the question of whether he wants to live or die. Otherwise, he cannot be sick often, right? One's health is one's primary concern. Now, Algernon, in order to appease her, in order to please her, and to give Jack a chance to propose to Gwendolyn, Jack and Algernon has made a pact, right? Earlier, that Algernon, if you give me a chance to propose to Gwendolyn, I will have dinner with you today, right? Let's go and party. Okay. So, in order to please her auntie and as well as to give Jack a chance to propose to Gwendolyn, Algernon offers, okay, to go over to the next room to go over the musical program for an upcoming reception. Her auntie has arranged one reception where all the nobility will be attending. Okay, and Algernon was given the charge of the musical program. So she tells her auntie, if you would like to come over to the next room, I'll run over the musical program to you, and you can have your judgment or you can have your say, right? As Lady Bracknell moves to the music room, okay, she is commenting. She says that, oh, Algernon, my French songs I cannot allow to be played in my reception, in my dinner party, because people seems to think they are improper and either look shocked or they laugh. But German songs, they are thoroughly respectable, so I might allow you to play German songs. And as they were entering the room, on the doorway, she turned and says to Gwendolen, will you accompany me? Gwendolen, you will accompany me. Okay, auntie's Gwendolyn's, I'm sorry, Algernon's auntie is very cunning and very witty. Okay, she doesn't want Gwendolen to be left alone with Jack. So as they were about to enter the next room, the music room, right, she says to Gwendolen, Gwendolen, you will accompany me. Gwendolen replies saying, certainly, Mama. But Gwendolen is in love with Jack. Okay, so in your textbook, the chapter ends with the Lady Bracknell and Algernon go into the music room. Gwendolen remains behind. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the chapter. Again, class 11 students, like we have often mentioned earlier, your notes will be provided to you separately. Please access it. In fact, if you go through this online video tutorial slowly, I don't see why you cannot answer some of the simple question and exercises given in your textbook, right? On pages 119, we have referenced the context, two questions, two questions, fairly easy, and you have the 30-40 words. There is a short answer type questions, 4 of them very easy ones, and 2 long answer type questions, right? Please attempt on your own after going through this video, and please read the textbook again and again. You will have to read the textbook along with the understanding that you get from these video tutorials. Then you will be in a very comfortable position to answer the question, to answer the questions, right? Anyway, questions will be provided to you, so you don't have to worry. I'll get in touch with you with the next video very soon. Okay, thank you.